The galaxy was quiet in ways it had never been before. Great star lanes that once carried traders, explorers, and fleets of travelers were now empty. Planets that had shone with life and light grew dark as their cities were destroyed, their skies filled with ash. At the center of the silence was fear, a fear that every race understood but none could defeat. The name of that fear was the Vel. The Vel were not the first enemy the galaxy had faced. Across ages, wars had come and gone, and alliances had risen to stop them. But the Vel were different. They were a storm without mercy, spreading across worlds like fire through dry fields. When they came, no treaty could stop them, no wall could hold them, and no army had yet stood long against them. World after world fell. Colonies that had taken centuries to build were destroyed in days. Fleets sent to fight them never returned. The council, once strong and proud, now gathered only to share sorrow. Their great chambers, where voices had once debated trade and progress, echoed with silence. Among the many races, despair grew heavy. The Kale, a people known for their crystal cities, saw their last homeworld turned into glass by Vel weapons. The Dar, giant beings who had once ruled half the galaxy, lost battle after battle until only a handful of ships remained. The Lura, whose songs had carried across star systems, fell silent as their fleets vanished in dark space. One by one, every race tasted defeat. The Vel did not take prisoners. They did not speak. They did not bargain. They moved with one purpose: to conquer all that lived. No one knew where they had come from. Some whispered they were machines built long ago. Others believed they were creatures from beyond the galaxy, shaped by some unknown force. The truth no longer mattered. What mattered was survival, and survival seemed impossible. The galaxy's leaders gathered in the High Council for what many believed would be the last time. The chamber was dim, the walls cracked by earlier attacks. Hollow maps showed the spread of the Vel. Red marks stretched across stars like bloodstains. Only a few clusters of blue remained, and they were shrinking fast. Elder Mayor of the Dar spoke with a voice that shook. "We are broken. No fleet remains strong enough to face them. Every colony is falling. We have no path left." Councillor Rhea of the Lura, her face pale, answered, "Perhaps it is time we accept it. We have fought as hard as we could. We have given all we had. What more can be done?" Her words echoed the hearts of many. Around the chamber, heads bowed. Once, leaders would have argued, shouted, and planned. Now, they had no plans left. But even in that silence, not all hope was gone. Some voices still tried to rise, though they were faint. One young delegate from a lesser race asked, "Is there no corner of the stars left untested? No hidden strength we have overlooked?" The council did not answer. For centuries they had ruled, for centuries they had believed they controlled the fate of all known space. But now they were tired, weary of watching the stars they loved fall into darkness. The Vel advanced ever closer. It was said that their greatest fleet was moving toward the core worlds, and when it arrived, the heart of the galaxy itself would be broken. There would be nothing left after that. In the outer colonies, where resistance had once been strong, survivors whispered to each other that no help was coming. Families fled deeper into space, carrying what little they could. Refugee ships drifted from one ruined system to another, always running, never finding safety. Children who once dreamed of bright stars now asked why the skies had turned so dark. The galaxy had given up. It was not a surrender written in words, nor a treaty signed in weakness. It was a surrender of the spirit. Entire civilizations accepted that the end was coming, and they no longer believed in salvation. Hope, once the brightest fire among the stars, had burned out. Yet, in that endless silence, a faint light remained. Few noticed it. Fewer believed it could matter. Somewhere, on a small planet in a system long forgotten, a new force was waiting. But for now, the galaxy did not know. For now, it believed only one thing: the age of life among the stars was ending. The council ended its session. Leaders returned to their shattered worlds. Soldiers returned to empty bases, preparing for battles they could not win. Across the stars, the same thought filled every heart: the end had come. But the story of the galaxy was not over. Not yet. In the dark halls of the High Council, the leaders sat in silence. Their maps showed only loss. Entire star systems glowed red with the mark of the Vel, while the blue lights of free worlds had grown few and scattered. It seemed there was nothing left to discuss. Yet, in one corner of the chamber, a faint alarm began to echo. A small council officer hurried to the central table. His hands shook as he carried a hollow slate. "A transmission has been received," he said. His voice was uncertain, almost apologetic, as though the message could not possibly matter in such grim times. "From where?" asked Elder Mayor of the Dar, his deep voice carrying little interest. The officer swallowed. "From the Sol system." At that, the chamber grew even quieter. Some looked confused. Others frowned, trying to recall the name. Sol was a forgotten place, a system marked long ago as unimportant. It had only one habitable world, and its people were considered too young, too primitive, to stand among the stars. Most council records barely mentioned them. Councillor Rhea of the Luro leaned forward. "You must be mistaken. No fleet has come from that system. They had no part in the wars. Their world was left alone." The officer nodded quickly. "Yes, Councillor. That is true. But the signal is clear. It is a message in galactic code. The origin matches Sol. And it says only this: we are coming." The words hung in the air. Some leaders exchanged doubtful glances. Others shook their heads. "A broken world sends bravado," Elder Mayor said at last. "Empty words cannot save us." But not everyone dismissed it. The young delegate from the lesser race, who had spoken in the last session, raised his voice again. "Perhaps they are not empty words. If they have survived in silence all this time, who is to say they have not grown stronger?" A wave of laughter moved through the chamber, though it was bitter rather than joyful. Admiral Zira of the Kale spoke sharply. "Stronger? The humans were barely reaching their own moon when our fleets were already crossing the stars. What could they possibly bring now, when even our greatest forces have fallen?" The young delegate answered softly, "Hope." The council fell quiet again. Hope was a word they no longer used. Far from the council chamber, in the refugee fleets, whispers of the signal spread. At first it was treated as a rumor, something too strange to believe. But as the words traveled from ship to ship, they began to change. People repeated the phrase "we are coming" as though it were a promise, a lifeline in endless darkness. On a mining ship drifting in empty space, a father told his frightened children, "Do not be afraid. The humans said they are coming." In broken colonies, families painted the words across walls. On shattered stations, soldiers repeated them before taking up arms again. No one knew if it was true, but the phrase gave them strength they thought they had lost. The Vel continued their advance, unaware of the signal that now stirred whispers across the stars. They struck with their usual force, tearing through fleets and burning colonies. But this time, when survivors fled, they carried more than fear. They carried a spark of belief that perhaps salvation still existed. Back in the council chamber, debates continued. Some demanded the signal be ignored, calling it a distraction. Others argued it might be a trick, a trap set by the Vel to spread false hope. Yet a small number urged patience. Councillor Rhea finally spoke again. Her voice was heavy, yet not entirely without feeling. "We do not know if this message has meaning. We do not know if the humans can change anything. But if even one chance exists, should we not wait and see?" The council could not agree. Their divisions remained, their despair still deep. But the signal had done something no strategy, no weapon, no plan had managed in years. It had made them pause. It had made them wonder. Meanwhile, in the far corner of the galaxy, on the blue world of Earth, engines thundered. Deep in hidden shipyards, metal giants stirred. Crews rushed across docks as massive warships prepared to rise into the stars. For decades, humanity had watched silently, building in secret, far from the eyes of the Council and the Vel. Now, their time had come. The signal that reached the Council was not a bluff. It was a warning. And soon, the galaxy would learn what it truly meant. For now, however, the Council only saw a single message, strange and small against the shadow of despair. They did not yet understand that history had already begun to change. The galaxy had forgotten humanity. But humanity had not forgotten the galaxy. And they were coming. The outer colonies had long been the shield of the galaxy. They were the first to face invasion, the first to burn, and the first to fall. One such colony, called Arden, had once been bright with green forests and silver cities. Now its skies were dark with smoke, and its ground trembled under the march of the Vel. The defenders stood with what little they had left. Old warships hovered in orbit, their shields failing and their weapons broken from earlier battles. Soldiers on the ground dug shallow trenches, though they knew the walls of Earth would not stop the enemy. Families huddled in shelters, whispering prayers that no one believed anymore. From orbit, Commander Solon of the Lura watched his scanners. His voice was low as he spoke to his officers. The Vel are here. Their fleet numbers are greater than anything we can resist. This will be our last fight. No one argued. The screens showed black ships sliding through space like blades of shadow. Their numbers filled the sky. The defenders had barely 20 ships. The Vel had hundreds. The attack began. The first wave of Vel fire cut through the defending fleet with brutal precision. One ship exploded in a ball of flame, then another, then another. The defenders returned fire, but their weapons only scraped at the armor of the enemy. The ground shook as the Vel launched their strike craft toward the surface. Screams filled the comm channels. Commander Solon gripped the arms of his chair. He had fought for years, seen worlds fall one by one, but nothing had felt so final. His fleet would die, and the colony below would be lost. He closed his eyes for a moment, ready to accept the end. And then the sensors lit up. At first, his officers thought it was another Vel fleet. The numbers were large, too large to believe. But the shapes on the scanners were different. Sharp lines. Triangular hulls. A design unknown to them. What is this? Solon asked, his voice sharp with disbelief. The comm crackled. A new voice spoke, calm and steady. This is Admiral Rana of the United Human Fleet. Hold your ground. You are not alone. The bridge fell silent. Officers looked at one another. The word human was rarely spoken in council halls, and never in battle. Yet here it was, carried across open channels. Outside, the dark sky of space brightened as the new fleet arrived. Hundreds of ships emerged from faster-than-light travel, moving into perfect formation. Their hulls gleamed with the light of the nearby star. Some were small and fast, others were massive carriers and cruisers bristling with weapons. Each ship bore the same mark, a blue and white crest shaped like Earth. For the first time, the Vel hesitated. Their formations shifted, uncertain at the sudden arrival of a new enemy. Then Admiral Rana gave her command. All units, engage. The human fleet moved like a single machine. Smaller ships darted between Vel lines, striking weak points with precision fire. Massive carriers unleashed waves of fighters that swarmed across the battlefield. Heavy cruisers fired powerful energy cannons, their blasts tearing through ships that had once seemed unbreakable. Commander Solon watched in shock. The Vel were powerful, but they were not prepared for this. Where alien fleets had fought with caution, the humans fought with boldness. Where others had retreated, the humans advanced. Every maneuver was sharp, every strike calculated. The tide of battle began to turn. On the ground, soldiers who had braced for death looked up at the sky. They saw fire streak across the heavens, but it was not the fire of their destruction. It was the fire of human warships cutting through the veil. For the first time in years, cheers rose from the trenches. The battle raged for hours. Vel ships exploded one after another under the relentless assault. Their formations broke, and some fled into deep space. The defenders, stunned but inspired, joined the fight alongside the humans. Together, they pushed the enemy back until the last Vel ship in orbit was destroyed. When silence finally returned to the skies above Arden, the defenders could hardly believe it. They had survived. Commander Solon opened his comm to the human flagship. "Admiral Rana," he said, his voice heavy with disbelief, "you saved us. We thought the galaxy had forgotten this colony." The Admiral's face appeared on the screen. Her expression was calm but fierce, her uniform marked with the crest of Earth. "No one is forgotten," she said. "We have been preparing for this war. Humanity is here, and we will not stop until the Vel are defeated." Word of the battle spread quickly. Refugee ships carried the story across the stars. Colonies that had lost hope repeated it again and again, "The humans have come. They fought the Vel and won." In council chambers, leaders who had dismissed the soul signal now sat in uneasy silence. The humans were not only real, they were powerful. More powerful than anyone had guessed. The galaxy had been waiting for a savior, though none believed one would come. Now, salvation had arrived not from ancient powers, but from the forgotten world called Earth. And this was only the beginning. The High Council had not called a meeting so quickly in years. The chamber, which had once been filled with silence and despair, now stirred with voices. News of Arden's survival and the sudden arrival of the human fleet had spread across every colony and station. For the first time in decades, the galaxy was speaking not only of defeat, but of hope. The great hollow map above the council table showed the battle at Arden. Blue markers represented human ships. They had fought with precision, and their victory was undeniable. Even the most doubtful leaders could not deny what the reports showed. Elder Mayor of the Thar stood, his great frame casting shadows across the chamber. "We must understand this," he said. "From where did these humans gather such strength? How did they rise unseen while all of us bled?" Before anyone could answer, the chamber doors opened. Guards stepped aside as a small group entered. At their front walked a woman in a dark uniform with a crest of blue and white upon her chest. Her steps were steady, her gaze unshaken. She was Admiral Rana of Earth. Whispers moved through the chamber. To many, it was the first time they had seen a human. They looked small compared to the towering Thar, plain compared to the radiant Lura, yet there was something in their presence that carried weight. The Admiral did not bow or hesitate. She walked straight to the council table and stopped. "I am Admiral Rana," she said. Her voice was firm but respectful. "On behalf of Earth and the United Human Fleet, I speak before you today." Counselor Rhea of the Luro leaned forward, her tone sharp. "You arrive with force we did not know you possessed. You fought the Vel and won. But where were you when the rest of us suffered? Why did you remain silent?" Rana met her gaze without fear. "We remained silent because we were not ready. When the Vel first appeared, Earth was still building, still learning. We could not fight then, not without throwing our people into ruin. So we prepared in secret. We watched. We studied. We built our fleets away from the eyes of the enemy. Now, we are ready." Murmurs filled the chamber. Some leaders nodded slowly, understanding the strategy. Others frowned, angered that humanity had hidden while others fell. Elder Mayor rumbled, "You speak of preparation, Yet you offer no proof that you can carry this war further. One victory does not decide the fate of the galaxy. Rana did not flinch. She raised her hand, and a hollow screen lit up above the chamber. It showed images of massive shipyards hidden within the Sol system. Hundreds, perhaps thousands, of warships stood ready. Rows of carriers and cruisers gleamed in the light of Earth's star. Factories worked day and night, producing more with each passing cycle. This is the strength of Earth, Rana said. We did not hide out of fear. We built in silence because we knew the day would come when the galaxy would need us. That day has arrived. The chamber grew quiet. The images spoke for themselves. Humanity had not only built ships, they had built an entire war machine while the rest of the galaxy had crumbled. Counselor Rhea, her tone softer now, asked, "And what do you want from us? Do you come to command us? To rule in place of the Vel?" The Admiral shook her head. "We do not come to rule. We come to fight. Humanity knows what it is to stand at the edge of extinction. We will not let this galaxy fall. But we will not fight alone. Join us, and together we can break the Vel." Her words carried across the chamber with strength that no holomap or battle report could match. For years, the Council had spoken in whispers of fear. Now a human spoke with the fire of defiance, and it stirred something long buried. Some leaders still doubted. Admiral Zira of the Kale stood. "Your courage is great, Admiral, but the Vel are vast. Even with your fleets, how can you promise victory?" Rana's answer was simple. "We do not promise victory. We promise that we will never stop fighting. That is what makes us human. We endure. We rise. Even when we are broken, we rise again. That is our strength." The chamber fell silent again, but it was not the silence of despair. It was the silence of thought, of leaders who began to imagine a future they had already given up on. Outside the council halls, the news spread quickly. Refugees who had heard only of loss now heard of human admirals who spoke with courage. Soldiers who had fought without hope now spoke of fighting beside humans. Across the stars, a question began to rise: could the Vel truly be defeated? Admiral Rana returned to her fleet after the meeting. She looked out at the stars, her expression steady. Behind her, thousands of human warships waited, engines glowing, weapons armed. She knew the war was far from over. The hardest battles were yet to come. But for the first time, the galaxy had seen humanity's face. And it was not the face of fear. It was the face of defiance. The galaxy had waited so long for hope that few could believe it when it finally appeared. Across the star systems, human fleets moved swiftly and precisely, their engines leaving trails of blue light across space. They did not fight like the other races had before. They fought with creativity, speed, and a courage that inspired everyone who saw them. On the planet Veres, a small colony that had endured years of Vel attacks, the people watched from orbiting stations. Their own fleet had been destroyed months ago, and they had accepted the Vel as their inevitable masters. Yet now, through the smoky skies, human ships appeared. They were not alone. They carried fighters, energy beams, and shields that could resist the Vel's most destructive weapons. Commander Solon, who had survived Arden's battle, observed the fleet from his station. His voice was filled with awe as he spoke to his officers. "Look at them. They move like one mind, yet each ship is free to act. This is unlike anything we have ever seen." The first skirmishes began near the outskirts of the Veres system. The Vel, confident in their superiority, launched wave after wave of attack. Their ships tore through asteroid belts and planetary defenses with terrifying precision. Colonies that had once resisted for decades fell quickly, but when the human fleet arrived, everything changed. Small, fast ships darted through the enemy lines, dodging fire and striking critical points. Their energy beams cut through the Vel armor, and fighters swarmed the largest ships like flocks of aggressive birds. Human tactics combined speed, surprise, and teamwork in ways that the Vel could not predict. On the surface of Varys, soldiers who had given up hope watched the battle above. They whispered the name of the humans and felt their courage grow. Where they had once hidden in fear, they now took up arms alongside the remaining defenders. Together, they pushed the Vel back, reclaiming ground that had been lost months before. In the council chambers of neighboring systems, news of the victories spread quickly. Holomaps showed Vel ships exploding in numbers that had once seemed impossible. Entire fleets that had terrorized the outer colonies were shattered within hours. Leaders who had been silent in despair now spoke of strategies and alliances. The galaxy, once paralyzed by fear, was beginning to move again. The humans did not stop at one system. They advanced from planet to planet, chasing the Vel through the stars. Each battle followed the same pattern: human ships outmaneuvered their enemy, outsmarted them, and inspired local defenders to fight. The Vel had grown accustomed to fear and surrender. They had not expected resistance, and certainly not the kind of resistance humans brought. Commander Solon stood on the bridge of his newly repaired ship as another battle unfolded. He watched as human carriers launched fighter squadrons that danced through enemy fire. Explosions lit up space like fireworks, but the humans moved calmly, efficiently, without panic. He could see it in their movements, their determination, their refusal to give up. Admiral Rana's voice came over the comms, steady and commanding. "Hold the line, push forward, protect the colonies. Every ship counts. We do not retreat. We do not surrender." The words were simple, but they carried power. Humans did not speak in complex strategies or elaborate orders. They spoke in courage. And courage spread like wildfire. Across every system they entered, humans inspired other races to fight harder, to take risks, and to reclaim what had been lost. In the space around the core of the Hestia cluster, the largest Vel armada yet assembled met the human fleet. It was a battle unlike any the galaxy had seen. Thousands of ships clashed, energy beams lit up the void, and fighters swarmed like living storms. For hours, it seemed impossible that anyone could win. But the humans adapted. When one plan failed, another succeeded. When the Vel pressed, they outflanked them. When the enemy thought victory was near, humans countered with strikes they could not predict. Slowly, the Vel began to fall back. For the first time, they retreated in disorder, their dark fleet scattered across the stars. On a small observation platform, a child watched her first battle. She had seen destruction before, but this was different. Humans were not only surviving, they were winning. Her eyes sparkled as she whispered to herself, "We can fight. We can win." The victories were not without cost. Human ships were damaged, colonies were still in danger, and lives were lost. But with each battle, confidence grew. The galaxy, which had long believed itself defeated, began to rise. Alliances once broken were renewed. Refugees found courage. Soldiers who had given up hope took up weapons again. The galaxy had been dying under the Vel's shadow, but humanity's arrival changed everything. The turning battles proved one truth: the Vel were not unstoppable, and the galaxy was not beyond saving. Admiral Rana looked across her fleet as they prepared for the next system. Her eyes were steady, her mind focused. "This is only the beginning," she said. "We will push them back. Every world, every star, every life, they will not fall while we fight. Humanity will not give up. And neither will the galaxy." For the first time in countless years, the stars seemed brighter. The galaxy had found hope, and it burned stronger than any weapon. The Vel had grown arrogant. After years of domination, they believed no force in the galaxy could challenge them. Their fleets filled the space around the core systems, a dark storm ready to crush any resistance. The Council and remaining races watched in fear, certain that this would be the end of all they had fought for. Yet the human fleet was ready. Thousands of ships moved in perfect formation, engines glowing with steady light. Every cruiser, carrier, and fighter had been carefully positioned. This was not a battle of desperation. It was a battle of determination. Humanity had waited for this moment, and they would not fail. Admiral Rana stood on the bridge of her flagship. Around her, officers checked systems, prepared weapons, and monitored the enemy. Her voice was calm, confident, and clear. All units, today we do not fight for glory. We fight for every world, every life, every star. The galaxy will not fall while we move forward. The fleet surged toward the Vel Armada. From a distance, the enemy appeared as a single shadow, vast and unbroken. Their ships were black, jagged, and seemingly endless. Energy flares lit the void as they fired at the advancing humans. But the human fleet pressed forward, shields raised, weapons ready, and courage unwavering. The first collision shook space itself. Energy beams crossed like lightning, and explosions illuminated the darkness. Human fighters weaved between Vel ships, striking at weak points with precision. Large human cruisers unleashed powerful cannons that tore through the enemy armor. The Vel, who had never faced such tactics, struggled to adapt. On the surface of the core world Kyrth, civilians watched the battle unfold. Cities that had been abandoned were now lit with hope. Soldiers who had long given up picked up weapons again, ready to fight alongside the humans. The courage of one fleet had inspired the courage of many, and the galaxy was rising as one. Commander Solon, who had fought in every previous battle, could hardly believe what he saw. "They are not like us," he said to his officers. "The humans fight with strength, speed, and a will that never falters. They will not surrender, even if everything else falls." The Vel attempted to regroup. Dark waves of ships moved to surround the human fleet. But humanity's strategy was flexible. Smaller ships flanked the enemy, launching precise attacks from unexpected directions. Carriers released fighters in coordinated swarms that cut through Vel defenses. Every time the Vel tried to press forward, the humans countered, striking where the enemy was weakest. The battle raged for hours, filling space with fire and energy. The galaxy held its breath. Every explosion, every destroyed ship, was a step closer to freedom. Humanity's leadership was not only in strategy but in morale. Their fleet moved as one, confident and disciplined, while the Vel grew frustrated and scattered. Admiral Rana gave commands that were both simple and effective. "Hold formation. Protect the colonies. Push them back. We do not retreat." Her words carried through the comm channels to every ship, every soldier, every ally. Courage spread through the fleet like wildfire. Even races who had once doubted humans now fought with renewed strength. Finally, after relentless attacks, the Vel began to falter. Their massive armada, once feared across the galaxy, started breaking apart. Ships fled in every direction. Their lines crumbled, and their power diminished with every passing moment. It was the first time in centuries that the Vel had been defeated in open space. On the bridge of her flagship, Admiral Rana allowed herself a small smile. She knew the battle was not yet completely over. Some enemy ships had escaped. Some colonies were still in danger. But for the first time, the galaxy could see that the Vel were not unstoppable. Commander Solon watched the remaining enemy retreat. He turned to his officers. "They are breaking. They are running. Humanity has done what no one else could. The galaxy is free if we do not stop now." The galaxy erupted in quiet cheers. On countless planets, survivors looked to the sky, their hearts lifted for the first time in years. Refugees felt hope again. Soldiers who had survived months of despair now raised their weapons with courage. Humanity's fleet had not only defeated the Vel, they had given the galaxy the courage to fight again. Admiral Rana addressed her fleet one final time that day. "This is not the end. We must remain vigilant. But today, We have shown the galaxy what it means to never give up. The Vel are defeated, and life among the stars will continue. We fight together, and we endure together. Across the stars, light began to return to the galaxy. The shadow of the Vel, once thought permanent, was now broken. Humanity had led the charge, not with power alone, but with will, courage, and determination. The galaxy had been saved by the strength of those who refused to surrender. For the first time in countless years, the stars seemed alive with possibility. The Vel had fallen, but the story of the galaxy was only beginning. The battle was over. Silence spread across the stars, but it was no longer the silence of fear. It was the quiet of relief, of a galaxy finally catching its breath. The Vel, the enemy that had brought so much destruction and despair, had been defeated. Entire fleets had been shattered, colonies freed, and lives saved. Humanity had led the charge, and the galaxy had survived. Admiral Rana stood on the bridge of her flagship, looking out at the endless expanse of stars. Ships of every race floated in formation beside hers. Humans had fought alongside Kale, Lura, Dar, and countless other allies. Every victory had been shared, every loss mourned together. The galaxy had learned that strength alone was not enough. Courage, unity, and the will to endure mattered most. Commander Solon of the Lura approached her. "You did what we never thought possible," he said quietly. "The Vel were unstoppable. We were defeated. Yet you changed everything." Rana shook her head. "It was not just us. It was every ship, every soldier, every person who refused to give up. Humans may have led the fight, but the galaxy fought with us. You all have strength you did not believe in." In the council chambers, leaders from across the galaxy met once more. The atmosphere was different now. There was no fear, no hopelessness. Instead, there was gratitude, curiosity, and a sense of responsibility. Worlds that had once bowed to despair now discussed how to rebuild, how to protect one another, and how to ensure peace in the future. Elder Mayor of the Dar spoke to the assembly. "We have seen the courage of humanity. They fought not because they were the strongest, but because they refused to surrender. Perhaps it is time we learn from them." Councillor Rhea of the Lura nodded. "The galaxy has been given a second chance. We must not waste it. We have been reminded that hope is not lost, and that life is worth protecting." On the surface of Earth, celebrations were quiet but heartfelt. Humanity had known loss in their own history, yet they had learned to endure. Ships returned from battle, battered but victorious, and crews embraced one another. Children watched in wonder as the sky filled with returning fleets. To them, the stars had become more than distant lights. They had become symbols of courage, unity, and possibility. Across the freed colonies, people rebuilt homes and cities. Refugees returned to their worlds with hope in their hearts. Farmers tilled soil once scorched, engineers repaired broken factories, and artists painted murals of courage. Humanity had not only fought battles in space, they had inspired the galaxy to fight for life, for freedom, and for one another. In council chambers and cities alike, people spoke of Admiral Rana, not as a ruler, but as a symbol. Her calm courage, her clarity in the face of danger, and her belief in the will to survive had guided the galaxy through its darkest time. Yet she often reminded others that the true strength lay within every being who refused to give up. Commander Solon reflected on the journey. From Arden to the core systems, from the first small battles to the ultimate defeat of the Vel, humanity had taught the galaxy a lesson that would be remembered for centuries. Victory was not only measured by ships destroyed or systems saved. It was measured by the courage to stand when all seemed lost. In the years that followed, human fleets remained a protective force across the stars, but they did not dominate. Instead, they shared knowledge, helped rebuild, and trained other races to defend themselves. The galaxy grew stronger together. For the first time, Civilizations that had once been divided learned that cooperation was more powerful than isolation. Children on distant planets grew up hearing stories of the human fleet and the battles that saved the galaxy. They learned of the courage that refused to surrender, of the unity that brought victory, and of the hope that never died. These stories became lessons, guiding them to become leaders, explorers, and defenders of the stars. Admiral Rana looked out at a galaxy alive with light and activity. Planets glowed with life, fleets patrolled the stars, and the future seemed full of possibility. She knew the Vel might return someday, or new threats might rise. But she also knew that the galaxy would endure. The spirit of life, the will to survive, and the courage of its people had been proven. The galaxy had been saved, not by destiny, not by ancient powers, but by humanity. By a race that refused to give up, that fought with courage, and that inspired others to believe in themselves. Humanity's legacy was not only in their victories, it was in the hope and courage they had awakened in every corner of the galaxy. And so, the stars shone brighter than ever before. The galaxy had survived, and life among the stars would continue. The story of humanity and their allies was only beginning, but the lesson was clear: as long as beings refused to surrender, no darkness could ever destroy the light of hope.